Collect presents WWF Over the Edge.
Impromptu commentary time. I want to come up here and talk about a couple of things. One of the things I want to talk about was that. No Over the Edge on the WWE Network. Please, I would appreciate it as a fan if you would just leave that show off of there altogether. I know they're already going to be airing some Chris Benoit footage on the network. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I know they're very high on the idea of having every single pay-per-view ever in history available on this network. And I'm all for making all of that great history available to all the wrestling fans that purchase the network, but there's just something about this show that I think is wrong to play. You can edit out the Owen Hart part all you want, the part where he fell and where they're talking about it and all of that, but if you watch this pay-per-view, you know something is wrong. I actually haven't gone back and watched it in a long time, and I really have no desire to. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. No matter what they edit out, the fans are going to be able to tell that something's not right. You can tell by the announcers, you can tell by the work in the ring that something very, very negative is hanging over top of the show. I'm personally of the belief that the minute Owen fell and died, that this show should have been canceled. Now, I don't blame the WWE for keeping the show on. I just still think it should have been canceled. When you look at what they were going through in 1999 with their pay-per-views, with the WCW war, and they're faced with, a situation that nobody has ever faced in the wrestling business before, they made the decision that the show must go on. Now, even though I don't agree with that decision, when you look back on it, you can't really blame them for making the decision that they did because, who's ever been in that position before? So I've really never held it against the WWE that they kept on going with a pay-per-view that had one of my favorite wrestlers of all time die on it. But when it comes to the WWE Network and them playing Over the Edge, now I'm against it. You know what? This is one fucking pay-per-view. I understand Chris Benoit. He was a huge part of the WWE, and he is featured on a lot of content that they're going to want to use for the WWE Network, and if they don't use any of it, it would be such a huge chunk of history to leave out because of the circumstances surrounding Chris Benoit. So they're going to put all the pay-per-views up there that have Chris Benoit matches on there. Apparently they're going to put up a little disclaimer before each show, reminding the fans that these are television characters that they're watching and, not to take it literally, I guess. And I'm really wondering how that's going to look with a lot of the shows that Chris Benoit wins, especially WrestleMania 20. Are they really going to show that, Chris Benoit holding the title up, the confetti, the whole moment at Madison Square Garden surrounding him? He's hugging Daniel and Nancy in the ring along with Eddie Guerrero, a big tearful moment. That right there is going to be weird for me to watch as it is. But at least with the Chris Benoit stuff, I understand that there's just so much of it. He was involved in so many WWE and WCW pay-per-views, it's almost impossible to avoid him. So the decision to put Chris Benoit on the WWE Network, I understand. I do not understand Over the Edge. This is one pay-per-view. Just get rid of it. Just pretend it didn't fucking exist. There was a title change on that pay-per-view. Maybe they're wanting to have all of the history-making moments available on the network. The Undertaker did beat Steve Austin for the WWE title that night, which is another thing I wish the WWE would have at least just changed the finish. If they weren't going to cancel the show that night, I wish that they would have just changed the finish of the main event and had the Undertaker beat Steve for it, on Raw or some other time, just not particularly on that show. And for the younger fans now, it's been 15 years, they might not even remember much about Owen Hart or really know what happened. And so having this pay-per-view available on the network might not be a big deal and you might not even notice, but I think you will notice because the pay-per-view just took a very, very somber tone once that happened to Owen. Actually, when I pulled up the opening clip here to use for the video, I was actually watching a little bit of the Sunday Night Heat broadcast that I have recorded as well from that night. And it really makes you think what would have happened, how great the show would have been had that Owen Hart tragedy not taken place because the atmosphere and the vibe was so fantastic. The crowd was jacked. It was a hot 1999 Attitude Era crowd, Stone Cold title defense, Vince McMahon's out there, just the atmosphere was amazing. I think it had the potential to be a great pay-per-view, but it is going to be highly noticeable to any fan watching this on the WWE Network that the vibe completely changed, as soon as that accident happened to Owen. Whether they edited it or not, you're going to know something's up with the pay-per-view. And as hard as I took Owen Hart's death, and as hard as a lot of fans all around the world took Owen Hart's death, none of us really want to fucking see that show ever again. And I don't want to be reminded of it either. Nobody's saying I have to go on the WWE Network when it comes out and watch Over the Edge. I'm not going to do that. But the very fact that it's available on there, I think is an unnecessary reminder to us what happened to Owen Hart, and I don't like it at all. So I'm highly against Over the Edge being on the network, but still, the WWE is going to do what they want to do, and it's not going to stop me from ordering the network. I still think the network is going to be an industry changer, and I, for one, am excited for it to come out in a couple of weeks. weeks. I also want to talk a little bit about Jeff Jarrett. You know, he left TNA a couple of months ago. The rumors were that he might be trying to buy TNA. I think he was partnering up with, who's that country music guy? Toby Keith, right? I don't know anything about Toby Keith. I cannot stand country music. I would rather have a root canal than listen to any country music album ever. But still, the guy's a highly successful entertainer. He's got a lot of money, hopefully, and, hopefully him and Jeff Jarrett can create a successful promotion. Apparently, they were supposedly maybe going to buy TNA, but something fell through in the negotiations. I have no idea what, so now it looks like Jeff Jarrett's going to branch off and start his own promotion. Now, the only reason I'm mentioning this is because I had a couple of ideas. First of all, nobody is ever going to compete with the WWE. I think it's going to be so hard for somebody to start a new promotion when Vince and the WWE owns the history of the business. They basically have to be very new and use new talent and don't rely on anything from the WWE. Don't rely on their old stars, their old talent, or anything that you cannot use footage for, because that really truly can take a toll on how your product is presented when you just have so little to work with. So I think Jeff Jarrett's best bet is to go after TNA. Make some competition on the secondary level. I actually think that could help the wrestling business. Nobody's going to touch the WWE. Forget about competing with them. Not going to happen. But you can compete with TNA. And wouldn't it be ironic that the company that Jeff Jarrett helped found, he ends up putting it out of business later? That would be insane. So if Jeff Jarrett's got enough money backing him and they can get this promotion off the ground and they can scour the globe for good independent talent, plucking great workers from all over the world, even including Ring of Honor, maybe even grabbing some TNA guys who are disgruntled or whose contracts are up, they can make a nice little stable of good wrestlers and hopefully maybe have a good semi-successful wrestling promotion. And whatever Jeff Jarrett decides to call his wrestling promotion, please promise us there will at least be a fucking W in the initials. But I'm actually really rooting for the idea, because creating some competition on a smaller level between TNA and Jeff Jarrett's new promotion could really, that could create some buzz in the wrestling business. It would be another place for guys to go now and get paychecks. Even WWE guys, who are young enough, when they leave, these are now more options for them, and they don't have to worry about the WWE having them by the balls. And honestly, even though I've never really been a huge fan of Jeff Jarrett, he's actually the exact type of guy you would want to start a promotion. Do you know how far back his family goes promoting wrestling? I dare say Jeff Jarrett has more experience and know-how behind the curtain than a guy like Triple H does. I remember during the steroid trial 20 years ago, Vince brought in Jeff Jarrett's dad to run the company in case Vince went to jail. The Jarretts know what they're doing. And I don't know how long it's going to take for him to get the promotion off the ground, but I'm guessing something like this would take a year or even maybe two. But something came to my mind, and it's far-fetched. I think somebody might have even mentioned it to me before, and I kind of brushed it off, but I realized that there could be a potential for a huge story to break in the wrestling business. Something that hasn't happened in 20 years and something that I honestly thought could never happen again. And before I tell you what that idea is, let me just tell you that I am still personally of the belief that CM Punk will be back in the WWE one day. I don't think he is gone forever. I think that CM Punk has the rest of his life to be bitter and pissed off about wrestling. He needs to make the money while he's able to wrestle, and you never walk away with money on the table like that. He is completely walking away from a good paying contract, from a WrestleMania payday, and God knows how many other potential paydays he's got coming to him in the WWE. And I think in time, CM Punk will come to realize that the WWE is going to be the best place for him to build his legacy. But here's what's interesting. CM Punk hasn't said a word. The WWE is doing their best to combat all the fans hijacking the shows, chanting CM Punk, doing their best to kind of make the fans forget about CM Punk as best they can. It's pretty much split 50-50 amongst the fans and amongst CM Punk's peers. Some of us appreciate what he did, some of us do not. But if he were to really stay gone and July comes and goes and whatever contract he would have had goes away, he's got a 90-day no-compete clause, this puts him available to do something around October or November. Let's say Jeff Jarrett's promotion, is able to secure a TV deal by then, which I don't know how you do that. It seems like you have to have a product in order to get a TV deal, but they have nothing to sell a network. So unless they just have a ton of money, I don't know what they're going to do. But let's just say, for example, that they were able to secure some sort of a TV deal. They've also filled their roster with a lot of great, probably mostly unknown independent workers, Japan workers, Mexican workers from all over the world, create themselves a really good roster, maybe even a few names that people people do know, maybe grab some disgruntled talent from TNA, maybe grab some former NXT guys or whoever the WWE has recently released. That is, provided they're young and capable of working in the ring. Don't bring in any old washed up guy, to give your promotion name recognition. No Hogans, no fucking anybody like that. But what if, like I said, Jeff Jarrett was somehow able to secure a TV deal for his new promotion and they were going to debut on a certain night of the week sometime later on this year? I think that if the company is going to make one crazy expense, if they're going to concede one time to showbiz and entertainment and say, okay, we're going to bring in one name, we're going to pay this one name a lot of money because we think it would be a good way to get our promotion off the ground. And what better name to bring in than one of the hottest, most controversial stars in wrestling's history who walked out on the WWE, CM Punk. Bring him in on the first night of your promotion as a surprise and shock the hell out of the wrestling world, because CM Punk, like I said, this is the first time I can ever remember a talent being able to leave the WWE and take their name and theme music with them. This has only happened once, and it happened with the Macho Man Randy Savage, because WWE didn't own the Macho Man name and they didn't own his theme music. They don't own CM Punk's theme music either. That belongs to Living Color. So what CM Punk could actually do is something that no wrestler will ever be able to accomplish again. I mean, hell, not even John Cena could go over to another promotion and be completely himself. I don't think he even owns You Can't See Me or Word Life or any of those other Five Knuckle Shuffle or any of that other shit that they market him on. CM Punk, he might not own his t-shirts. Maybe he doesn't even own Best in the World catchphrase. I don't know, but it would be an easy fix. He could easily come up with another shirt. They could use the same music, and it would basically be like a WWE guy showing up on a new promotion. This would be like Lex Luger showing up on the first Nitro. Now, with all that being said, let me just reiterate, I don't see that happening. I don't think CM Punk would do that, but that would be a historic way to shake up the wrestling business, and it would be something that I honestly thought could never happen again. So even though it's a far-fetched possibility, it still is a possibility, and it's something that we should all at least think about. The one other thing I want to talk about is some more Daniel Bryan plans going into the February 24th Raw, Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania, and all of that. I got to thinking after I watched Raw last Monday night and watched Daniel Bryan and Kane have their interaction and their brawl, and watching how Kane is in a little bit of trouble with the Authority right now, being put on administrative leave. He's fucking up a little bit. I just got to thinking that, hey, this is WrestleMania time. I think Kane needs to be Kane, and I don't want this corporate Kane to last much longer. And I had a couple ideas for storylines. Now, what show these things take place on can all be mixed and matched, and you guys can even help me with this. But what I see happening, or what I would like to see happen, is for Kane to do one more fucked up thing. Screw up one more big time where he feels the wrath of the Authority. One idea I had would be, for the February 24th Raw. We know The Undertaker is supposed to return on that show. Apparently Hulk Hogan is too. But let's say on that February 24th Raw, a pissed off Daniel Bryan, who fell short of winning the WWE title at Elimination Chamber, comes out and he's mad at Kane. Maybe Kane had something to do with him losing, I don't know. But basically he challenges Kane to a match on that February 24th Raw in the main event. And I can kind of picture Kane being all reluctant, not wanting to do it, and I see Daniel Bryan maybe doing something like Stone Cold did. Remember when Stone Cold cut his promo on Kane the night after King of the Ring 1998 when he lost the title to him, and of course Kane wouldn't give him the rematch? And Austin basically telling Kane what a big bad monster he is, but he's acting like a pussy. So let's say Daniel Bryan's cutting some sort of a promo on Kane, challenging him, trying to convince him to give him a match. And since Kane is the director of operations and he can maybe make certain decisions, what if Daniel Bryan tricks him or goads him into agreeing to a stipulation for their match? Hey, Kane, if I beat you, then you have to put me in the main event of WrestleMania in the match with Batista and Randy Orton as a triple threat match. You screwed me out of my chance last night, so you're going to give me another chance at WrestleMania. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because The Undertaker is supposed to return on the February 24th Raw, so my idea won't even work if the Daniel Bryan and Kane match is in the main event that night. Because basically, at the end of the day, what I would like to see happen here is I would like to see Kane get ousted from the Authority, maybe beat down viciously by the Shield or whoever else is doing the Authority's dirty work. Maybe even Triple H's new kind of buddy, Don't forget that handshake. Brock Lesnar came back, stood in the ring with Triple H, his longtime rival who he's had brutal matches with. and shook his hand. Those guys now could be on the same page. What if Triple H calls up Brock Lesnar and says, hey, I need you to beat the fucking piss out of Kane. If you do this for me, I'll even give you your title shot. You've been begging for a title shot? Fine. You do this for me and I will give you your title shot. So maybe Brock Lesnar comes out at some point and just starts beating the crap out of Kane, and then who makes the save? What a perfect way to bring in The Undertaker, right? But whatever they decide to do, I would like something to be tied in with Daniel Bryan and corporate Kane going back to original Kane and The Undertaker, Brock Lesnar getting involved, Triple H, you know, all this stuff. I think it could be really good, especially if Paul Bearer is supposedly going to go into the Hall of Fame this year. You kind of think you have to have Kane being the original Kane. You know, I think at WrestleMania 30, it's such a milestone show. Kane doesn't need to make any sort of appearance in khakis. Kane needs to be who he is. He needs to be one half of the Brothers of Destruction, maybe even being in The Undertaker's corner. Remember how last year, you know, Shawn Michaels, I think, was in Triple H's corner against Brock Lesnar. Maybe Kane can be in Undertaker's corner against Brock Lesnar this year. And Triple H still needs to have a match. If they insert Daniel Bryan into the main event of WrestleMania 30, then who does Triple H wrestle? That's what I'm worried about. You know, that's why I think Daniel Bryan might not be in the main event of WrestleMania 30, because Triple H needs an opponent. Unless, of course, during all of this stuff involving Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, Daniel Bryan, Kane, Triple H, unless, you know, the 15% of me that still thinks that this entire CM Punk situation is a work, unless he makes some sort of a surprise appearance and attacks Triple H, you know, and they end up having their WrestleMania match anyway. I think that's highly unlikely, but it's still, you know, part of me just thinks, because of everybody's silence, that maybe the WWE is trying to pull off the biggest work of all time. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see on that. But if Daniel Bryan is in the main event, then where does that leave Triple H for his WrestleMania opponent? Unless you put him in the ring with Kane. But do we want to see that? I mean, I'm a big Kane fan. I'm even a Triple H fan, but I don't know if we want to see Kane and Triple H at WrestleMania. Or maybe it's a tag team match, the Brothers of Destruction versus Triple H and Brock Lesnar. I don't know if we'd want to see that either. I prefer Brock in one-on-one contests. But The Undertaker is pretty old and broken down. It's going to be hard for him to physically keep up with Brock Lesnar in a one-on-one match, so maybe a tag team match would be better. But whatever the case, I just want the end result to be Daniel Bryan, you know, being involved in the title picture, and Kane going back to being Kane. If Paul Bearer does go into the Hall of Fame, I don't know how they're going to have this guy inducted. I'm guessing it would be The Undertaker. I don't think I would want Kane to induct Paul Bearer, because The Undertaker is the guy that, you know, has the most history with Paul Bearer. It needs to be Taker. But Taker's also never on Hall of Fame, so I don't know if he'll make an exception in this case, you know, to induct his longtime manager. I don't know. But if they're going to do a Paul Bearer, you know, Hall of Fame induction, you kind of don't need a heel corporate Kane during all of this. I think I would much prefer, for Paul Bearer's sake, for Kane to be aligned with his brother and going back to his old gimmick. That's what I'd like to see. So if there was some sort of a way to tie all this together into a big storyline, like I just laid out, you know, get all the dates right and figured out when you want to do these things, what stuff takes place on Elimination Chamber, what takes place on Raw, and what goes on during all the Raws leading up to WrestleMania, they can fucking plan it out however they want. But I would like to see something like that all tied in together, where Triple H possibly brings Brock Lesnar in to clean up some dirty work for him. You know, Kane goes back to being, you know, the big red machine. Daniel Bryan, you know, gets put in a program that the fans actually want to see him in. And as far as his title victory and when he'll do that, we can debate that for the next few weeks leading up to WrestleMania. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Let me know what you think, you know, as far as where you think some of these plans would go. Like I said, this was just an impromptu commentary because, you know, this Monday night's Raw, the go-home Raw to Elimination Chamber, I don't even know how good this Raw is going to be. I plan on being home and watching it, tweeting as usual, but I don't know. I may or may not come up and put up a predictions video. I just don't know. To me, it just seems like this is just a little tiny stale period until we get to the Elimination Chamber and the night after, because the night that the network launches, the night that Taker comes back, that Hogan comes back, and then a lot of plans are going to start being set out for WrestleMania. That's going to be the night that we're all going to be excited to see as wrestling fans. So basically, we have another, you know, week and a half before anything good happens. So in the meantime, I just wanted to come up, give you some random thoughts on some of these subjects, just to give you something to listen to. So I hope you enjoyed it. I may or may not catch you after Raw. I guess until then, you're just going to have to live with the mystery. Peace.